It worked. Yes, many joyous days upon us. Aaron Bruski thumping his chest for good luck, I assume, or what's going on over there? He's doing a Tom to make sure that our show actually gets going. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is Fantasy NBA Today, a special weekly lineup show that I know a lot of you were expecting to start about 20 minutes ago, but for whatever reason, YouTube was not happy with us, and so we decided to just start it over, shut her down, turn off the computers, and rebuild the whole darn thing. And it does appear as though we are actually live and in existence. And with that in mind, I suppose we can probably start a show. So, Aaron, we have a ton of things to do, so I'm actually going to forego the normal pleasantries where I ask you how you're doing, because frankly, I know how you're doing. And the answer to that question is you are tired and you are also excited because the NBA season starts tonight. But let's jump right into the important stuff. And the most important is today, basically, is a free preview of what a weekly lineup show would be. And that's for premium subscribers only. It'll occur on Mondays. And we get to pick your brain, Aaron, which I know is pretty much what everybody in the fantasy world wants to do anyway. And this is their opportunity to do it.
Yeah, this is really where the rubber meets the road. You know, once you start answering questions on the internet, they keep coming and they keep coming and they keep coming. I stopped answering questions for a while there. I just couldn't keep up with it at all, and I'd kind of leave my analysis whenever I was writing articles for RotoWorld or whatever. But this premium service is where you come for that type of a question. We also have question and answer products that if you want to make sure you get your questions answered, those are available to users as well. But this one's just all lineups. And, you know, Monday afternoon is a tremendous time for injury updates. And what we want to be able to do is try to get you as much information as possible leading up to lineup deadlines. And of course, then you want to just stay locked into the website and the player news blurbs, which really are the key to everything that you're going to do this year. And really, for me, blurbs are the most important thing in fantasy today. You want to be able to figure out what things mean and get that information quick so you can make decisions quick. But as far as lineup questions, this is where you want to be.
So the general format for the weekly lineup show will be, certainly once we get into an actual routine on this, we won't have to spend the first 5 to 10 minutes of every show discussing kind of what the show is and when you can expect to hear it. But today we will. And so with that in mind, today is also the only time we're going to be doing this on a Tuesday this season, we think. Most of the time, it'll be Mondays, probably right after lunch, and that'll take you to within about an hour and a half or 2 hours of your Monday evening tip. And that's our goal, Aaron, is to really get as much news as possible before people have to set their lineups, and as much news as possible so that when we talk about it on this show, we're contemporary. We're up to date with what's going on. And so it does create a little bit of a log jam, but we're fortunate enough, Aaron, to steal you for a critical hour in weekly prep. And I think you'll be talking about sort of key players, whether or not they're going to sit or start. And then after that, we'll move into some other questions. Is that about accurate?
Yeah. I think, and this week is going to be kind of like the end of the season is going to be very strange because everybody has injuries during the preseason, and teams now are withholding more information than they ever have in the past. So you're getting a lot of these reports that, he's not going to be ready or he's out indefinitely. And then you're hearing that he's going to, seeing a note come through here on something in the NBA. You're hearing these guys are going to play. And so that's going to lead to some wobbly start-sit decisions. And also keeping in mind at this point in time, you don't really want to get too far off your preseason projections on any of this stuff. You don't want to be looking at matchups. You don't want to be looking at a lot of what-if situations. You just don't know with a lot of these guys. We don't know which of these guys took preseason seriously. We don't know which ones of them are going to use the first 10 games to get in shape. So you just kind of got to just set it and forget it and not think about a lot of things. So when we answer these questions here today, a lot of what I'm going to say is going to be a rehash of the Bruski 150 and the projections that you see there. But I'll also try to tell you, if you have questions about specific guys that have injuries, what my gut's telling me on how much they're going to play, and what kind of effort you might see from them this week.
Well, I'm going to just kind of keep you talking here, Aaron, and then I'll bounce back to what folks can expect in terms of timeline on this show, on NBA Today, tonight, and all that good stuff, and where they fit into the hoop ball program. But because you're talking about these players that are kind of, the injuries are a bit nebulous, were there any for this opening week that jumped out to you as ones you felt like a lot of people in the fantasy world are probably staring at that same piece of news and thinking, does this mean anything? Is this a guy I can reliably start? Who are the top few guys you think where people are hemming and hawing right now?
I think a big one was Derrick Favors, and we just got the update right now that he's not going to play in the season opener. And this is an example of knowing which markets report which injuries which ways. Utah for years has been very secretive about injuries that are very serious, not very serious, but serious enough to knock a guy out. They did it with Rudy Gobert a little bit last year. He was never really truly himself. They did it with Darren Williams back in the day, where he had a shooting wrist injury, and that actually, they kept saying it was minor, it was day-to-day, it was nothing, and then it knocked him out significantly. And with Derrick Favors, now you just wonder.
My dog
in the background. That's awesome.
That's a puppy neck stretch, by the way.
That's awesome.
I'm going to shift this way. She's probably more interesting than you and I.
I know, right? And the Derrick Favors situation has been one of these things where, oh wow, that is just a classic photo bomb. That's awesome. That's just awesome.
And this is what you get with the live program.
Exactly. The Derrick Favors situation has been interesting because there's serious concern about his knee for fantasy owners, and I think around the league. And you've got a Jazz team that's got so much depth, and then you've got Trey Lyles, and he's been sitting there in the background. And what's happened with the Trey Lyles hype is just phenomenal to me. All these sites hyping up Trey Lyles as a must-grab late-round pick in the summer league, and then leading into the preseason, all that hype just disappeared. I don't know where it went. Like, the best you can get out of a fantasy site now for Trey Lyles is he might play 20 to 30 minutes per game, or he might, he might be able to step up or something. And
why do you think that happened?
I don't know. I mean, we were down on him from the start, and maybe that swayed some people, but to me, it's really strange. I know a lot of fantasy owners went out there and picked up Trey Lyles as a key sleeper, key pickup type in the late rounds, maybe with like an 11th or 12th or 13th pick. And you've got Derrick Favors sitting here with his knee injury. This should be a bigger story, in my opinion, because if this is a breakout candidate, then, a potential knee injury to a frontline guy like Derrick Favors, especially if Trey Lyles is a piece of this puzzle here, he's a small four, and he changes the dynamic of the Jazz to more of a running team, something that they've really struggled with being. They've talked about pace for the last 3 years, and they've been last in pace, I believe, every year. And they start to turn the ball over when they run, and they're not built to run with two big centers in Rudy Gobert and Derrick Favors, but both of those are great defenders, and it makes Utah special defensively. So I can see the hesitancy to turning the keys over to a Trey Lyles at the four, and a lot of people were like, well, what if they trade Derrick Favors? And now you've got this knee thing that really clouds everything up, and him missing opening night, that's going to put a big fear into owners that this knee is not okay. And at the same time, they probably should not be walking up to that cliff just yet, because if you're the Jazz, why put him out there for one game in early or probably late October and risk that? So
I feel like the look at opening day is actually, it couldn't be more different of fantasy player versus actual player, where for us, we feel like if we don't see a guy on opening day, that means that he's just done. And for the team, opening day is probably one of the least important games of their season. So it's a weird dichotomy there. So where do you sit on this fence? Is this a situation where you kind of have to sit Favors for a week and see if he's ready by next week?
Absolutely. You have to sit Favors this week. And I was really looking at Favors in drafts this last couple of days, knowing his ADP was plummeting, and I was not able to grab him. But you got to think right now at his low point, this is the time where if you want to gamble with a top 80 player that might be on the upswing, a hotter name. I mean, I don't know who kind of comes to mind in that range, but after tonight, or this is the week for owners to just pillage the overreactions. I mean, last year you had CJ McCollum as a top 12 guy. If you sold him for anything in the first round, you probably won. Nikola Mirotic last year, they had the mission accomplished banners out for him in week one, and he disappeared. So you can pretty much just fleece people at this time of year based on overreactions. And then Trey Lyles, that's the problem with Trey Lyles. And what I think people realized, and maybe this is why the hype went away, is that his stats do not translate to fantasy as well as they could. And so even if he gets 30 minutes per game, what are you really getting out of that? Are you getting a top 100 guy? Are you hoping that he jumps in each stat category and makes leaps across the board? And so that's why we just didn't see it. So I'm just a little surprised there's not more Trey Lyles hype. But Derrick Favors is a big one. And, going down the list.
Yeah, who's the next guy?
I think people are trying to figure out what's going on in Philadelphia. Sergio Rodriguez is starting, and that just came through the wire. And TJ McConnell, in my opinion, might be the better fantasy play. I think on a per-minute basis, he gives you more pop for your lineup as probably a top 120 guy, whereas Sergio Rodriguez might get a lot more minutes. He might, or not a lot, might 26 minutes to TJ's 22 or something in that ballpark. And they might finish in the same realm from a fantasy perspective, but that comes as a result of Jared Bayless's wrist injury, keeping him out at least a month. And this is a guy that breaks down like this all the time. So I'm looking at both Sergio and TJ as long-term late-round plays going forward that should probably be owned in most 12-team standard leagues. Kind of going down the list here, you see Marcus Smart is not going to play. He's probably out. I'd give him another week. Interesting thing on Smart is when they waived R.J. Hunter in Boston, that tells me that they're not ready to cut Smart's minutes down quite as much as I probably thought they'd cut him. So he's probably a 27, 28 minute per game guy because R.J. Hunter could legitimately have stolen his minutes. That's an interesting cut situation right there. I would expect R.J. Hunter, if he can land on a team like Philadelphia or something like that, that's real sleeper territory right there. I'm not saying go out and cut a player with value for R.J. Hunter, but have him on your watch list. And if he landed in a place like Philly, that would be a phenomenal shift in value for him. Other injuries, Randy Foye is actually going to be out on Wednesday.
Catastrophe.
Yeah, I know. Well, he's starting, and he's probably slated for 20 to 25 minutes. And Kenny Atkinson, coach of the Nets, is probably looking at him and saying, I need veteran leadership to stabilize the lineup at the beginning of the year. And Randy Foye, of course, can't get out there. So, and that's, I mean, he's an older player, so no knock on him.
What's the fallout in or around the shooting guard position in Brooklyn?
I think Rondé Hollis-Jefferson's going to get a lot of minutes early on. We're going to find out what his value is real quick. I think they'll rely on Jeremy Lin, obviously, and Bojan Bogdanovic is going to be pretty good. He was good over the summer in the Olympics, and he has done nothing in the preseason. And unfortunately, his stat set's not great for fantasy value in standard leagues. So you're probably not seeing a lot of that, Bohan action out there. He's more of a late round guy. But I wouldn't be surprised if he makes an Evan Fournier-like jump where he's actually good.
I would be. I think people would be pretty pleased with that. Fournier had himself a nice season last year.
He has the look of a number one scorer for the Nets. I mean, of course, Brook Lopez is there, and he's going to carry that load. But in terms of a number one perimeter scorer, everybody's high on Jeremy Lin. But if you look at Jeremy Lin's stats, he has had a real tough time getting over 27 minutes per game, even when he's had all of the opportunity in the world. So, yes, Brooklyn loves him. Yes, there's kind of nobody there to challenge him for minutes, and they need him to be that guy. I just wonder, can he do it? So I think Bohan's the guy that probably carries the number one perimeter scoring mantle, and he's had big games in the past. It shouldn't surprise anybody. Maybe a top 75 upside with him.
That's pretty doable, I'd say.
Joel Embiid's another one that's on everybody's hype list, and he'll be one of the better quotes in the NBA. So good for him. And he's on a 20-minute restriction tonight. So that
Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's going to be for the foreseeable future. That's the problem with drafting. He got drafted by a lot of respected drafters in these championship formats, these national formats, where I was like, wow, I can't believe he's going at 100. And thinking, what are you guys going to do when he's still on back-to-backs, restrictions, minute restrictions, defenses tighten up. He's not getting, 20 good minutes. He's getting 10 good minutes and 10 crappy minutes. What's going to happen with all that? And yes, he looks like a physical presence. And yes, he's got all the tools and he's got the talk to back it up. That'll be an interesting one, but he's on a 20-minute limit tonight. And all the time this happens. Preseason stats are inflated. Guys just go out there and tear it up. And then they get into the real games and it's a lot different story. It really depends on who they're playing. And I don't know who the Nets or probably the Sixers are playing in their first matchup.
I'll get that for you. Fear not.
Thank you, sir.
I'm here for something.
Is that code for shut up, Bruski?
No, it's code for keep talking. This is the easiest show I've had in weeks. They're playing the Thunder, by the way.
Oh, yeah. See, now that's going to be a mess. The Thunder are coming out to show everybody that they're a good team without Kevin Durant. And actually, I do recall that now because I looked at TJ McConnell. That the Sixers play 2 games this week. So for weekly lineups, it just depends on who we're talking about here. But I had TJ McConnell. I was looking at him. He's going to get eaten alive, just eaten alive by Victor Oladipo and Russell Westbrook. I mean, they might as well bring an ambulance to the arena and park it right next to the court. It's gonna be ugly for both him and Sergio.
Well, it looks like they're playing the Hawks over the weekend, so Schroeder maybe a little more palatable, but still not an easy matchup.
No, because he can't get. I mean, yes, McConnell's game, relies on finding spots, kind of being opportunistic in that way. But when you get an elite defender covering him, he's not going anywhere. I mean, he's not turning a corner on anybody. And even in a pick and roll, both of those examples can either go under the pick and roll and recover. They could chase him over the pick and roll and still probably, be a hassle. So the Sixers are probably, this is where we can talk about Dario Sarich a little bit. Dario Sarich got elbowed into the face and left the practice the other day. And that was, for anybody drafting Dario Sarich, you're thinking, okay, orbital bone fracture or something like that, 6 weeks, I'm getting Meyers Leonard flashbacks in my head. He's going to practice. So that rules out any major injury there. So I think owners should be fine to play him as they normally would. But that's a guy, if you're going up against a backcourt that can basically shut down your backcourt, now you got to initiate offense from the post. You got to initiate offense from the high post or the elbow. And that's what Dario Sarich is there for. He's proven in the international leagues that he can pass. He showed it off at the Olympics. There's nobody to really challenge him for minutes for the things that he does on the floor. The Sixers are down playmakers. I don't see how this guy doesn't play 30 minutes a game. He looked terrible at times in the preseason, and they kind of intimated, hey, this is what it's like playing 30 minutes a night at the NBA level every other night. And he intimated he was tired. So I think – go ahead.
At the risk of jumping either ahead or back in some way, I know that these are. I want to take a moment actually to kind of highlight the fact that these are the types of situations that you will get discussed on the weekly show. There are some questions coming in the chat room that are actually a little bit better suited to Fantasy NBA Tonight, which is basically just a free for all of who should pick up who, when, and why. This weekly show, which again, I realize today is kind of a blend of the two just because of scheduling quirks. It will focus on sit-start. That's the basis. Injury-related, weekly schedule-related. So with apologies to those of you that asked questions about pick-up and drop stuff, those questions we will probably not get a chance to reach today. If you want to get those answered, make sure to join Vince later on. He'll have that 9 p.m. show where they'll take all questions, all comers, about anything that you want to ask. Again, I know last night he answered a question about how to split time with an infant and with fantasy NBA, and Vince's brilliant answer, which, by the way, I thought was the answer of the week, was used your bathroom time effectively. I wanted to repeat that because it was so good. But so to the question askers, to those of you posing queries here in the chat room, we will do our best to get to the ones about sit and start, but about pickup drop, stuff like that, and trades and things of that nature, we probably won't hit those on this show. So, Aaron, I know you're talking about the Sixers, and you mentioned that they're just a 2-game week. Those are, I guess, the two things that I want to make sure we hit before we run out of time today. Injuries sit start and weekly schedule sit start.
Yeah, and that's a great point about the 2 games. You're looking at a 2 and 3 game week for all these teams, and our schedule tool, which is a part of the draft guide as well as part of the in-season premium product, which we're going to be stacking up there today. The tool is awesome. I've developed something like this in the past, and it's worked for me. But Mike Pasador, he goes by Panda. He which fits our organization real well. He created this tool that, in my opinion, is the best weekly schedule grid that's out there. It's interactive. You can plug in your playoff weeks. There's certain things that you can do, and it looks good. So you'll see in the draft guide as well as in the in-season membership. And so you're looking at that, and you see 2-game weeks, 3-game weeks. And what does that mean to you when you're looking at this? And we had some heated discussions in the office last night about who to start and sit in all these different situations. And really how you got to look at it is you got to total up the minutes. You got to say, if it's Willie Cauley-Stein, and I'm with Willie Cauley-Stein expecting a slower start, stronger finish, better at the end of the year, slower at the beginning of the year. So I think he might be a 20-minute guy for his 3 games this week. I'm going to total that up. That's 60 minutes, and I'm going to look at 2 games with Sixers, and I'm going to go, okay, that's Philadelphia. They got basically Sarich. That'll be 60 minutes from Sarich, and with McConnell, it might be like 50 minutes. So that's how you got to break it down and look at it. And what are you expecting to get as a result of that? And so your 3-game weeks.
It looks like, by the way, San Antonio might be a 4 spot this week.
No. Is it?
I think maybe. They're playing tonight, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, yeah, they're the only 4-gamer this week.
Well, hey, go San Antonio. And that's why you're going to want to start those guys. And now I understand why a certain competitor of mine took some San Antonio guys for during his draft, because he's going to start them for 1 week and then he's going to drop them. Way to go, Eric Wong.
He's 1 step ahead of the game.
Yes. Wong. So yeah, exactly. He so to put that into perspective, a San Antonio Spur is going to be worth 200% of somebody that's got 2 games in a week. So you have to measure that. So somebody that's a top 50 guy might be sat for somebody that's a top 80 or a top 90 guy because of the valuation differences with 2 games versus 4 games. So that's just a really big deal. And looking at the Sixers, the only guys that I'm really comfortable with starting at this point would be Sarich and Covington. And even then, those guys are a little bit risky.
Okay, so let's turn our attention back to injuries, if indeed you have others you wanted to cover. If not, we can jump ahead to any start-sit questions we're getting in the chat room. Were there other guys you wanted to mention?
The front court in Charlotte is really interesting to me right now because, I had Cody Zeller pretty high in early Bruski 150 rankings, and a lot of that was based on the numbers he'd shown last year in low-minute totals. He was able to crank out a top 100 ranking pretty simply at about 26 minutes per game. You look at Roy Hibbert and you ask immediately, what can he give at the NBA level? You look at Frank Kaminsky, he's got a foot strain. He's probably not playing tonight, in Wednesday night's game. So that begs the question of what's going on with this front court here. Can a guy like Cody Zeller, once his knee gets right, sort of kind of rise, to the top of this and start playing 25, 26, 30 minutes per game? Marvin Williams isn't going to play more than 26 to 28 minutes per night. I mean, maybe they push him to 30 because they need him at 30, but they're not going to do that long term. They know what they have to do to keep him worth anything in the ballpark of that contract over time. They can't burn him out early.
That's just the HVAC guy taking off. So please continue.
Yeah, we got all sorts of guests in this show.
That was an unexpected one. That was a gentleman who we had an air conditioning pipe that collects the condensate that was not clearing. And so there's like a weird brown liquid that's draining in our hallway. So yay, being an adult, right? Anyway, please go on.
Yeah, the thing with that front court, I think that Cody Zeller could end up being a sneaky pickup for guys. I know he dropped in drafts and he basically didn't get picked up. Where he got drafted in drafts is people like Ryan Naus of Roto World, who looked at the same thing that I looked at and said, wow, these numbers translate to fantasy pretty well. Yeah, he might be injured right now, but anytime you're dealing with a guy that could have top 75 value and the front court players around him aren't all that imposing, and you're dealing also with a preseason injury where teams are over cautious, he's already possibly going to be playing in the opener. So that tells me that he's more or less ready to go. And yeah, there's a risk there with his knee that's not going to go away. He's been injury prone in his short career, but he's a guy that I've had at the bottom of lineups, and I won't be moving on anytime soon.
So maybe, do you feel comfortable taking some questions now?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. I didn't want to jump ahead. This is this show. I am but a vessel to getting your information across. So I'm basically stepping out of the way. We had a bunch of questions early on about different guys and how they fit into the situations. But again, I want to jump ahead just a little bit to the ones that are really truly focused on weekly lineup questions. And again, that's what this show is about. It will, by the way, be a separate program from Fantasy NBA Today going forward as well. So I want to kind of reiterate that. Fantasy NBA Today will always be free. That's your main hub for getting a breakdown from the previous night. It'll come the next day, of course, and then taking a look at some games coming up in that evening. This lineup show with Aaron, this will normally be Monday afternoon. It will be live, and it will be for premium Hoop Ball subscribers. So if you're liking what you're hearing and you think this is something you're going to want, certainly check that out at Hoop Ball going forward. Aaron, how do they get on board with that? That's something that I probably should have known.
Yes, Dan, you should know. No, I should probably be telling you this stuff, but everything in draft season's crazy, and it every year without fail, no matter how much you prepare, this 3 weeks is nuts. And then you get this little calm before the storm, and then you get opening night, and before you know it, you can't even remember the preseason, and you're into the weekly grind. To sign up for this show on Hoop Ball, there's a menu bar at the top, and you scroll over to premium, and then there's a drop down, and it says in-season membership, and that's where you click and you sign up. So it's on sale for $19.99, and actually there's 15% off that price if you use the promo code opening night. Yeah. So it goes up to $29.99 as of November 1st. So get in there and sign up for it now, and you will be able to see the weekly lineup show as well as our nighttime content, which is really valuable to be able to get an instant take at the end of the night on everything that just happened, and really, I mean, especially in a first come first serve league, you're just on a race, and I get so many questions on the fly that I have no chance at getting to being in the thick of it, where it's like, do I risk my fantasy season on this pickup? For those of you that have free agent acquisition budgets, for those of you that need to drop a key guy, I mean, it's big time decisions that come in the heat of the battle. So we have people there dedicated for that type of question, and you'll be able to get your questions answered a whole lot easier in the premium show than you will on the free show, where everybody and their mother will be.
Yeah, and there won't be that much time for question answering on the free show. It's simple as that. That's a show that we're going to be kind of showing off our wares, talking about the games that happened, the games that are coming. It'll be our opinions. We'll have special guests. That'll be fun. We've already had the Welsh. I'll be talking to his the other 50% of Bogman and the Welsh. That's Scott Bogman. He and I will be doing a show, I think, over the weekend. That'll air early next week as well. And that's what the daytime show is about. So the nighttime show, that's your on-demand expert stuff. Your daytime show is, and the best way I can think to describe it, and I've done it before, but I'll say it again.
It's Oprah. It's
yeah,
Oprah.
It's Oprah. It's your day.
But with fantasy sports. But we're not giving away anything because we can't afford to.
We're not giving you a Pontiac at the end of the program. But it'll be like the daily breakdown where you get the recap. It'll highlight some players. It'll be some key stories. And much like most daily recaps that come out either late at night or the following morning, our show will be the next day. So it's for those of you that are not in a huge rush. You've got some thoughts. You want to hear a couple of folks talk about fantasy basketball. That's the daytime show. The nighttime show, that is on-demand experts. They are there. They are ready to roll, and it's right as the games are ending. So it's great. And that'll, of course, come, as Aaron said, in a pairing with this show, the weekly lineup show. Aaron, you'll be doing a show, a waiver wire special. That'll be starting in the not-too-distant future. Again, that's all part of the paid content. Those shows occur live, just like this one is, whereas the daytime show will be sort of intermittently live, and oftentimes it'll just be a sort of traditional recorded podcast you can get on iTunes and on your phone and so forth. So again, head to hoop-ball.com, click on that premium button, and check it out. If I'm running my numbers right, it sounds like you can get a full season subscription right now for $17, which is pretty darn low. And let's make sure that the guys at Hoop Ball get to eat something nicer than ramen for a couple of days. How about that? Vince has blown every dollar he's got on Rockstar energy drinks, so please put something in that poor man's pocket.
I pay him in Rockstars is what I do.
There was that hidden fridge. I know Vince and I were getting ready for a show last week, and he walked away from the desk and kind of disappeared behind another desk in the background. I can't see it on your feed right now, Aaron, but he bent over, he vanished, and when he reemerged, poof, a magic Rockstar in his hand. So I think there was a mini fridge back there. But it's possible that it was just like a
putting other stuff in that fridge too. I'm just going to throw that out there. Anybody's watched his show, there's a lot of energy, and that's great. But I often wonder what's in the fridge.
The meth fridge. Yes, I know it well from my time in good old Oildale. Hey, Oildale. So let's look at some of these questions, and I'll see if I can pick out the ones that are sit-start related. So apologies if I use a verbal crutch now and again. It looks like Romer Bautista had a sit-start question pertaining to Andrew Wiggins and E'Twaun Moore. One of them 2 games. That's Wiggins. Moore has 3. He is punting assists and 3-pointers. Aaron, your thoughts on a 2-game Wiggins versus a 3-game E'Twaun Moore?
And he's punting assists and turnovers?
And threes. Assists and threes.
And we got Wiggins and Moore. And 2 with Wiggins and 3 with Moore.
Getting just started with a tough one here.
Well, these are always like this, and I'm not all that confident in Moore's ability to come out and be productive right away. I think that this team is also going to struggle to find its rhythm. I think Tim Frazier is going to take control of the ball quite a bit because he's actually been there for the last couple months and can, going back into last season and can really just give some tempo to that team. So, I mean, Moore, when he was getting 30 minutes a game with the Bulls, was a late round guy. Now, you take away the 3-pointer, and that might be a small advantage for him with Wiggins. You're looking at turnovers. I think that helps a guy like Andrew Wiggins. And then the assists, I think that that's going to hurt more than it hurts Wiggins. So I'm going to take Andrew Wiggins in this situation, even with the 2 games. I mean, he could come out and have a monster game. And Andrew Wiggins is a guy that fantasy owners love to pile on because the stat set's not great. But he's also a transformative player in the sense that this is a guy that can take major steps forward across multiple categories. There's very few guys that can do that, but the best players in the NBA are fully capable of coming in and just erasing a line of stats. And so he could be that kind of a guy. So he might, what I'm trying to say with that is expect him to play at about a top 50, 60 level. And if you're punting turnovers, it might be a little bit stronger. It could also be a top 30 level. And yes, he could have a stinker, and so could that's one more. But I think that his upside's higher. But even if he just plays at a normal level, he's going to be the guy you want to start there.
So again, I'm trying to bounce around a little bit here in the chat room to make sure I'm getting questions that are in the correct mold. And then, of course, if there's a minute or two at the end, we'll try to shoot back to some of the others. But no promises, of course. Movie Dude. Any idea if Josh Richardson or Gary Harris play this week?
I think Josh is probably not going to play, but I think Gary might play. And it's going to be close. If I had to bet on that, I wouldn't bet a whole lot because I think both guys are capable of returning. They're not, I think in Denver, they'll probably be pressing for him to play a little bit quicker than they will with Josh Richardson, because in Denver, they've got pretty high expectations, both amongst the coaching staff and in their front office. You would think this is a rebuild for them, but these guys want to get out there and show that they're in the playoffs. And I think with Gary Harris, they're not going to push an injured Gary Harris to play, but they're also not going to be telling him, "Oh, hey, take your time. We just want things to be safe. Don't hurt yourself." Now, in Miami, that's what they're telling to Josh Richardson. It's a knee sprain. He's basically, that's not something that you want to play with too much. Whereas with a groin injury, yeah, you can aggravate it. You could even tear something, but it's not a knee. A knee is always something that you want to be careful of. And Miami, I think they want to try to win, but I think there's people in their organization that would love to see them tank as well. So, yeah, I want to take Gary Harris, but I think both could come back.
Well, luckily, we actually have a train of thought in our questions here, which is nice because you and I don't, on the whole, have something like that you can follow. Andrew Wiggins got himself involved in another sit-start head-to-head battle on Patrick Lowe's team. Wiggins or Bradley Beal, both, or I should say each, has 2 games this week.
I'm going to go with Wiggins again. Bradley Beal could come out gangbusters. He could come out and make a real impact. Both him and John Wall are tired of this kind of media thing that maybe there is some type of resentment towards one another, but it's not enough to justify being a full-blown spat. And they're probably tired of hearing about that. I bet they come out and they play really well together. But he needs to score 21, 22, 23 points in a game with 4 rebounds and 4 assists to be a top 50 guy. That's asking a lot out of somebody. And he's also got to do it without, shooting 38%. He's a guy that's going to shoot 42% if things are going well. And that at a high volume does so much to hurt everything else, especially when he's not getting steals and blocks. I guess what I'm saying is the bottom could fall out for him pretty quickly, and he could be a top 150 guy over those 2 games. Whereas I think with Wiggins, there's both the stability, there's the expected production. I think you should expect him to produce more. And then I also think he's got a little bit more upside. Yes, Bradley Beal could go bonkers, score 30 points on 12 of 20 shooting, hit a couple free throws, and get the rebounds and the assists. But Wiggins, for his part, could do similar stuff, but he's also got the ability to get in there and do a little bit in the steals and the blocks department. Even if the numbers don't say so, I think you can expect more of a chance for him to be able to do that for you. So I'm going to take Wiggins and, not even think twice about it.
Oh, done. Then I won't let you. We had actually 2 questions that were related to the premium content side. So I want to give you an opportunity to address those. And then we'll do a quick, and I mean very quick, lightning round style look at the 3 games coming up tonight. And that'll put a lid on it. Again, apologies to those of you who asked non-weekly lineup show questions. Save those for tonight. Visit Vince. He's going to be addressing all of your needs, not just weekly lineup questions. So again, putting this one on the shoulders of the Miracle Man. But Roderick de Guzman asked if he purchased the draft guide, does that also make him a season pass subscriber? I believe the answer to that is no, correct?
No, they're 2 separate products. The draft guide deals with preseason content, and that'll stay open for folks all year long. In fact, that's good to have for the first month or 2 of the season. So you want to kind of refer back to certain things that are said. If you want to look back at, the way that the team previews were written, just a lot. I'd give about a month, 2 months. Looking at old projections is always fun and good, as well as, looking at the projections that'll be in the in-season guide. You can kind of get an idea of where guys were a month into the season, and what should you be looking at? Like, is a guy performing way over his head, and in relation to projections? And the question with projections are, where are those projections coming from? Do you trust that person? And because a lot of sites can put out projections, you just don't know who's doing them, and you don't know what method. Are they just taking like weird averages, per 36 averages from last year when they were on a different team with, God knows who around them?
Yes, probably. That's the simple answer to that.
Yeah, that's actually how they do it. And that's why the Bruski 150 constantly outperforms, is because we actually do the work. And, that's what it is.
Heaven forbid.
You do the work. I mean, come on now. But yeah, to answer the question, the draft guide is for the preseason stuff, and the in-season membership goes forward.
Hoop-ball.com, again, is, of course, the website. At Hoopball Tweets if you want to get their live updates. Scott Douglas asks, does the in-season stuff come with the pro service? I actually don't know the answer to that question.
That's something we're actually thinking about doing in the future. And Scott, what's up? He's one of our early subscribers, and we thank you very much for the business. And a good Torontan, I might add. So Scott, hit me up offline and we can talk about something there. It's something we're considering doing, and we want to spruce up the place a little bit on the premium question and answer product side. But it's really a phenomenal service, and if you want to make sure that your stuff's getting answered, you pay a 1 monthly fee, and you can get your questions answered within 4 hours on a standard membership, 1 hour on an urgent membership. It's, to me, if you're like Scott, if you're like myself, if you're like the people that work here, if you're like most of our readers, you want to win, and you want to win really bad. And to sit there and tweet at somebody like these questions, it's really, really hard to rely on that. And I know experts out there that just routinely give crap info, and they do that because they don't have the time, but they want to appear to be responsive. And then some of them might not, really research it, or some of them are stuck to their opinions, so they don't make changes. And here's a place where you can, keep track of your questions. You can make sure that you're getting them answered by somebody that should be answering questions in the first place, and just have that reliability factor that you can't get elsewhere. So yeah, we're going to look at that, Scott. I think it's 50% off as of right now, but we haven't really pushed that out because we do want to spruce the place up a little bit.
So you guys are doing a little decorating, and that's fair. I like that the chat room actually has kind of taken on a life of its own today of Hoopball guests and fans that are answering each other's questions. That makes me feel better about the fact that we're not going to be able to get to the other ones. So good job to everybody, you kind of crowdsourcing a few of those things.
On that note too, I'd like to see our readers get into our forums. That's just, you go to a fantasy website and you get into the forums there, and it's actually kind of how I got my start, believe it or not, is I went to forums and I was like, hey, I like answering these questions. This is fun. And but the problem is they get so big, and they you have to kind of figure out the lay of the land, and you might not get your questions answered, or you might get bad answers again. So if you're looking and you're saying, well, I'd like to get my questions answered, but maybe more of a crowdsourcing thing, which doesn't cost money, then you could go into the forums, and I'd like to see our readership get in there and start building that assistant coach type forum, rate my team type stuff, because crowdsourcing is really important. I always said this, working at RotoWorld, I would take our forum readers and put them in a basketball knowledge discussion up against most guys that cover the league, and feel pretty damn good about it, because fantasy owners, by and large, care more. They do more research. They got more on the line. I always take somebody that gambles with their money and wins, take their advice over almost anybody's advice. So get into those forums, create your own questions and answers, and just start interacting. I think it's a good thing for you guys.
Yeah, well, let's get it rolling. That was something that actually was always a lot of fun when I was over at Pregame, the sports handicapping website. The forums were truly massive. I mean, huge beyond your wildest dreams of people just talking about plays and streaks and public bets and wise guy bets and all that good stuff. So there's no reason why that couldn't happen in a fantasy website. And on top of that, it doesn't have to be sort of what would you call it, clandestine, because this is very legitimate and fun. And you don't have to hide what you're doing like you kind of have to when you're a bit more into gambling. So, Bruski, quickly here, and this again, lightning round, because we're at 9 past the hour, but we started late, so we'll try to wedge this thing on a little bit farther. The games this evening, of course, it's opening night. Number one, thank heavens, it's finally here. And actually, for a Dodger fan, myself, I would have liked to seen LA go farther in the playoffs, but if they had to get eliminated 4 days before the NBA season, I could have picked, I think, maybe a worse time. So I feel satisfied. You got Knicks Cavs. That's the early one. The nightcap that everybody's going to be watching is Spurs Warriors at 7:30 Pacific time. There's also a Jazz Blazers Northwest Division game going on at 7 up in the Pacific Northwest. So I don't have any specific questions on these games because I think the sit-start discussion knocked them out, and certainly all the preseason talk of the players that went to New York, the health issues in Utah, the depth in Portland, Durant in Golden State, Powell in San Antonio. Those are the big stories, of course, and we've covered those 1,000 times over. But just, what is an Aaron Bruski looking for on night one besides just the enjoyment of a game that actually counts?
I'm laughing because I'm looking at the Jazz Blazers and thinking, if not for TV market size, that would be one of the two games. That's a really good matchup between two teams that are on the rise. I think the Jazz have a really legitimate shot at the 2 seed. I think the Blazers are the shot at the top 4 seed. So you got two Western Conference powers that people don't really know a lot about. That would have been a great way to introduce those teams to the public if you're the NBA. So I think that's something that they've kind of swung and missed on. But of course, we get the Knicks. Got to have the Knicks. And, at least I think the league got the message that the Lakers aren't that fun to watch. So we won't be seeing them as much this year. I'm thinking
because now they're probably going to be a little bit more interesting. We just had to watch them through those clunker years. And now they've got the young guys and no one's going to know.
They will be very interesting to watch this year, actually, and that's going to be too bad for us because we got them last year. The Knicks and the Cavs, I think you're going to see the Cavs come out and really lay a whooping on the Knicks, and that's not typical. I think these championship squads do take the first week off, but these guys are tired of hearing about the Warriors. They're ready to come in and send a message to the rest of the league that they're also a super team that just beat that team. And so they're going to come out. I think you can expect big games. If you're looking at DFS, big games from Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, and Kevin Love. Kevin Love's a guy this year who has nobody contending with him for minutes. So I think he went undervalued in drafts. And then on the Knicks side, I don't know what they're going to do with Derrick Rose just yet. I think he's going to play. How much he plays, I don't know. And I think Brandon Jennings is actually the better fantasy asset and might actually take his job by the end of the year. Across the rest of the roster, no big surprise. Everybody wants to see how Porzingis does, and no complaints there. Carmelo Anthony could get caught up in the gamesmanship of it all, and I would expect him to have a big night from a DFS perspective. Looking at the Spurs and the Warriors, Danny Green is out. Kyle Anderson is your DFS and even streaming play this week, so give him a look. Patty Mills is a guy that's probably going to come in and get a little bit, a few extra minutes there, and might even be a better fantasy asset than Tony Parker this year. He looked really good in the Olympics. So you're looking at that. You're looking at Lamarcus Aldridge. How does he take that trade report? Does he have that zip on his fastball? If he does, then I think it'll put a lot of those concerns to bed. The Warriors, everybody wants to see them do their thing. And I think the Spurs won't take this game quite as seriously as everybody wishes they would. Jazz and Blazers, I'm looking at Rudy Gobert. Was the preseason for real? Is he going to be able to move the way that he looked like he was able to move? So the blocks and the rebounds and all of that. We'll be watching that closely. We're going to watch Trey Lyles, see how he does. Rodney Hood, can he make a bigger step forward than people are expecting? When I say when people are expecting, I mean, this is a guy that's got like top 100 value, even with a high minute total. within this Utah Jazz offense. Can he do something and make that a top 50 type of a value? I think he's got that type of talent, but the depth there in Utah is a big question mark. But he might be able to do some things, because if you're Joe Johnson and it's the first week of the season, you might not be ready, and they might not want Joe Johnson playing really, really hard in the first week of the season. So they might go to a Rodney Hood and say, hey, Rodney, show the league what you got. Let's make this your game. On the Blazers side, you're looking at the
depth. They have depth, finally.
They got depth, and you just kind of want to see, I want to see if Mason Plumlee can shove aside some of this front court depth. He had a really good season last year. He kind of looks like the third guy there, if you will. And what does he have, like a 30-minute role, in which case he'll have been underdrafted? I want to see, do the defenses start to shift more towards CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, have that seesaw effect where CJ got his last year, and this is the year that Damian Lillard gets his. So that'll be something. He said he was playing without pain for the first time in like 4, 5, 6 months. So yeah, those are the things I'm looking for.
I have one follow-up question on the Portland Trail Blazers, and it's something that could, as a question, could probably wait a few weeks. But what do you see happening when Festus Ezeli gets healthy? They paid him a decent amount of money to come up there.
Yeah, I don't know what the plan was there, and I don't know why they kept Meyers Leonard. You don't pay both of them.
It's easy. That's why they kept Meyers Leonard.
No, here's the thing with Meyers. I never thought he was a good player. Like, I always thought that he shot well for a big man, and he hit threes. Like, he was a 50, 40, 90 guy that was getting rebounds pretty well in the preseason. And you thought, this is a guy at 7 feet tall, decent athleticism, could get in there and get you 8 boards a game. And that didn't end up happening because he played a lot of 4. He played on the perimeter quite a bit. And frankly, I don't think anybody really trained him that well to rebound. I mean, he would, like, the ball would go up and he would be searching for a guy to box out at the free throw line, and then the ball would just hit the ground and the other team would get it. And it's like, maybe don't box out so much, Meyers. But yeah, I didn't think of him as a great player, but more of a better fantasy asset with opportunity. And Mason Plumlee came in there and erased him, more or less, and pushed him to the 4 where he can't play. So if you're saying, if you're the Blazers and you got Festus Ezeli and you got Mason Plumlee, you're looking at that and going, well, that's 50 minutes right there. So where does Meyers play? Well, he doesn't play. But I don't know if Festus can get healthy. And so did the Blazers go into that with eyes wide open, or did he get his contract and then go, oh, I got to get surgery?
Weird situation. They brought in a lot of warm bodies to Portland to try to address the fact that starters were playing such colossal minutes, but there are some question marks about how it all shakes out.
They got killed in the playoffs on the pick and roll, and the sad thing about it is it was an avoidable situation. And when I say they got killed in the pick and roll, I mean offensively, they blitzed both Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, forcing them to give the ball to Mason Plumlee, who did an admirable job for a big man being a distributor, but they didn't have that third guy who could handle, and that's what Evan Turner was. And that's going to make them a lot better. A lot of people laughed at that signing, and I've been a huge Evan Turner hater dating back to 2 to 3 years ago. I thought he would be out of the league practically. He got his weight under control, and he really learned to grind underneath Brad Stevens. He's become one of the more interesting guys in the league. Has come in there and
maybe a better follow-up question is, why did Boston players get so fat?
I don't know. It's well, I mean, he got skinnier in Boston than he was anywhere else. But yeah, Jared Sullinger blew up. But Sullinger's kind of an outlier there, and I think you're probably referring to Big Baby. With that. There's probably some pretty good food near the practice facility that both of them took advantage of.
Yeah, that's the only thought that I could possibly imagine there. Let's put a bow on this bad one, Bruski. How can people find you on the interwebs? And last plug for the premium stuff before we bid you adieu.
Yeah, check out our premium stuff. Go to the premium menu tab. It's on the top of the website if you're on the desktop, and it's on the side menu, the Facebook style menu. If you're on mobile, go to premium. It's right underneath premium. It's in-season membership. It's on sale right now for $19.99, 15% off if you use the code opening night. And that will be going, the opening night, I believe, lasts till tonight. But
that would make sense.
Yeah, but sometimes you might just want to try it. I think that got set for November 1st. You didn't hear it here. I don't want to get yelled at.
Oh.
But the
by who? You run this place.
Yeah, but there's overlings or whatever they're called that that want us to squeeze every bit of money out of you guys. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. No, Bruski
No.
is a man of the people, leading the proletariat in their revolution of fantasy basketball.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And
subscribe to things too, everybody.
And the sale price goes off on November 1st. So it's $29.99. And the reason being is you're just getting a better product than anything else that's out there. And I know I've run other products. I've seen other products. I know what's out there. And this one, we're all about that higher level of focus and delivering customer service and things of that nature. We might not be the prettiest. We might have, weird little glitches at times, but we have a team of about 25 of us now that everybody's super focused, super motivated. Everybody's got great attitudes. I think that our team can stand with any team that's out there, and we're just getting started. So we're just going to keep getting better.
I have to comment, by the way, on the prettiness factor. And I realize that I am looking a bit schlubby, but Bruski, you shaved. To what do we owe this honor?
I wanted to stop scaring children as they walked by me on the street.
The voice is probably number one. So that, by the way, is your Fantasy NBA Today special weekly lineup show, a combined effort. Again, very quickly here at the end of the program, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. So anytime we do a free Google Hangout, you get an alert on that. Make sure, by the way, to start, you're getting ready at least to follow multiple different podcasts. We're going to be splitting feeds right now. It's all on the Cause and Brew Show. Coming up next week, every show we do, Fantasy Tonight, Fantasy Today, and Cause and Brew will have their own feeds. So make sure to subscribe to those on iTunes when they get going in a couple of days. What's coming up for Hoop Ball? Tonight, Vince will have a Fantasy NBA Tonight program at 9 o'clock Pacific time. That is another live show via the Hoop Ball YouTube stream. And all of our shows, of course, are archived this week. It is free preview week of podcasts at hoop-ball.com before things make a slight adjustment next week. I'm at Dan Besbris on Twitter. That's also my name. He's at Aaron Bruski on Twitter. If you don't know his name, I don't know how you found this website. Hoopball Tweets is how you follow the site on the Twitter sphere for live up-to-minute updates, such as the Derrick Favors news that we broke here on the show as well. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Again, next week, this will be its own show. Fantasy NBA Today returns tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Zane Denani will be our guest on that one. Have a wonderful afternoon. Vince will get you in the evening. So long, everybody.